Check 1, 2.
Correct.
All right, y'all ready? We're ready. Look, good morning. Thank y'all for being out here today. We're going to talk about the upcoming legislative session and what we're going to do. And I appreciate Bingle Transportation for hosting us here. So thank you, Jake, and the workers at Bingle. We're in an insurance crisis in Louisiana. That is a fact. I don't need any polls to tell me that insurance is the issue for every man, woman, and child, every family, and every business in the state of Louisiana. But last year, we did make some progress on property. I worked with the legislators and with our governor to develop a comprehensive reform package, and we are seeing the results of that earlier than I expected. We have more work to do to make home and business insurance more affordable. And we're going to be talking about some of that. We've got some bills that I'm going to be supporting to help continue to promote and encourage property writers to do more business here in the state of Louisiana. And we're trending in the right direction. We have 10 new companies that have filed the appropriate forms to do business, to do homeowners business in the state. But more importantly, or just as importantly, we have 8 companies that have taken rate decreases for 2025. They have filed to take rate decreases for this year. And the citizens of Louisiana should expect to start seeing that as they renew their policies. We're going to continue to push hard for reform to build a momentum, including bills that create a permanent funding source and tax incentives for the 4-to-5 program, strengthen standards on home and roof repair work, give more notice for non-renewals and cancellations, and require insurers to provide more data about where and when they are actively writing. But the main reason we're here today is to talk about auto insurance reform headed into this year's session. That's why I asked Bingle to host this event. They and every other company in Louisiana that relies on commercial auto insurance to do business are suffering from some of the highest national rates, highest auto rates in the nation. I've asked Jake and Jared to join me today to tell their stories about how the auto insurance crisis is affecting their business and employees. Jake, if we could start with you, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just want to start it off. Again, my name's Jake Benner. I'm one of the directors here at Bingle. Like most trucking companies, and they're kind of represented behind me here, we feel as though the trucking industry is being attacked from staged accidents, and that's happened in New Orleans multiple times, and the plaintiff attorneys' frivolous lawsuits. As these lawsuits keep trending up, our insurance rates keep trending up. In my 20 years in the industry, this is by far the worst I've ever seen it. For the last 10 years, we've taken a substantial increase. Just a small example of that is 10 years ago, we were paying around $6,000 a truck. This year, we're right at 23, and that's actually a huge, huge jump in that. We've seen upwards from some companies upwards of $48,000 per truck. We went from 47 tractors 10 years ago to just 13 in one division. That's a huge decrease in trucks. One thing we're facing with decreasing in drivers is we're decreasing our office staff as well. We're losing dispatchers, we're losing office workers, safety professionals, mechanics, the list goes on and on of who's affected in these decreases. Now's the time for legislators to vote on this. And now's the time to make this change. Motor carriers have to have protection against the litigation practices and the heightened claims that we're facing day to day. We've had property damage incidents where we've just struck a car, and we've had people claim that they were in the car trying to file injury lawsuits. There's kind of multiple lawsuits with that. We've had folks hit us with very minimal damage, refuse medical treatment on the roadside, and then 2 weeks later we're being served paperwork that they're injured. It's crazy. The frivolous lawsuits we've seen is ridiculous. Just want to also kind of close out by saying that there's a lot of trucking companies that can't survive this. Everything you touch every single day at one point was on a truck. And we're going to keep having these trucking companies fold and go under due to insurance rates. We're going to be looking at a supply chain stalemate. That's all I've got. I'll turn it back over to the commissioner.
Thank you, Jake. Now I'd like to invite Jared with Barnado Towing.
Good morning. My name is Jared Barnado. I'm owner of Barnado & Sons Towing out of Denham Springs, Louisiana. I'm also president of Louisiana Towing Association, Towing and Recovery Professionals of Louisiana. Just to give you a little background, Barnado & Sons was started in 1957 by my grandfather. Towing and Recovery Professionals of Louisiana was started in 1998 by a group of towers that needed to be heard. The legislation was just running over the towing industry, so they got together and formed the association. Like the trucking industry, the towing industry is feeling the effect of rising insurance costs as well. We've been hit with a minimum of 30% increase over the last 10 years. Many family-owned towing companies are being forced to downsize every year or close their doors. These are companies that have been in business for 30 plus years. It's family-owned businesses that they pour all their personal money into, and then they have to close doors. They have to tell their employees they no longer have a job. They have to tell their family that they don't have anything else, and then they've got to go find a job somewhere and do something else. And this is all they've ever done. This is their passion. 30% may not sound like a huge number, but to put it into perspective, this year, 30% increase for most towing companies is going to renew around $46,000 per truck per year. It's just, we cannot absorb this cost any longer. We can't raise our rates fast enough to pass it on to the trucking industry, which also is fighting the same problem we're having. So we need change. We need, excuse me, we need our legislators to implement measures that will protect our family businesses from frivolous lawsuits so they continue to be passed on to our future generations. Myself, I have 3 boys, and my passion is to pass my company down to a 4th generation. But if insurance keeps going up, it'll just be a fantasy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Look, thank you both for your willingness to share your story. This is what we're here for. This is the battle that we're fighting. It's the battle for the Louisiana economy, for the Louisiana businesses, for the Louisiana citizens. We're trying to rebalance a system in Louisiana that is severely out of balance. We're not trying to drive anybody out of state. We don't want anybody to leave the state. But at the same time, individuals, families, and businesses are being forced to leave the state because of the system, because of the fact that they can't afford their insurance anymore. And so, before I get started on what I propose to support and to help bring balance about, I wanted to address some of the things that our governor said during his press conference yesterday. I'm glad that he's fully engaged on finding a balanced approach to this issue. And I am willing to embrace, and that he's willing to embrace data. I wholeheartedly support data-driven solutions. However, there were a couple of things that he said that are incorrect, and it's important to correct those on the record. If we aren't on the same page about the problems, we can't begin to make real progress on the solutions. First, the governor said that the Louisiana law does not provide the insurance commissioner, me, the authority needed to effectively regulate insurers. That simply isn't the case. Similar to 29 other states across the country, I have all the authority I need to deny a rate for being too high, and I exercise it. When a company submits a rate filing or a rate increase, our actuaries determine if it's too high. We tell them to reduce it or it will be denied. Sometimes they reduce it, sometimes they withdraw the rate. But I don't approve rates that are too high, period. The governor also said insurers can conceal information that I need to regulate them. Again, this isn't correct. Insurers must provide information to the department upon my request, regardless of whether they have marked it confidential. They have to provide the information. And they do. I have never had an issue obtaining the information requested and that I needed from an insurance company, and I request a lot of data from them. Last, the governor said that he will embrace data this session. And again, as I said earlier, I support that. To that end, I'm using data from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners today that you'll be seeing and we'll be talking about here in a minute. NAIC data is the gold standard for insurance data. At his press conference yesterday, the Governor Landry said that because auto insurers have lower loss ratios in Louisiana than they do in states like Texas and Florida, that means insurers make more money here than they do there. That also is incorrect. Loss ratios can't be substituted for profit. And we have some data here that's going to demonstrate that. If you look at the first chart, underwriting profit, and this is where we get a little technical, so bear with me here. It's important not to cherry pick data just because it looks favorable to a certain argument. The 10-year average the NIC uses gives the clearest insight to how a market is actually functioning and how it's performing. The chart that you have here before you shows the 10-year average underwriting profit made by auto insurers in Louisiana versus the U.S. and several other states that the legislature previously asked me to compare us to. And if you look closely, as you can see, insurers have an annual loss of nearly 8% in Louisiana, which is about 3 times the national average and over twice Texas. Commercial auto insurers do even worse in Louisiana. They have averaged a loss of over 30% each year, which is 5 times the national average and over twice as much as Texas. Thank you, Adam. The second chart is called Profit on Transactions. Even when you factor in insurers' investment gain, which isn't all that relevant here, but I want to be transparent, so we need to talk about it. You can see that Louisiana is still a loss leader for insurers. To clarify what these numbers actually mean, for every $1 of private passenger auto premium paid to insurers in Louisiana, the insurer initially pays out $1.08. Some of that loss is recovered through investment income, but even once that is factored in, the insurance company still pays out $1.03 to cover the cost of insuring the policyholder for every dollar that they take in. You compare that to the countrywide experience, which results in approximately 99 cents to cover the cost of insuring the policyholder after adjusting for investment income for every $1 of private passenger auto premium collected. The next chart is a 10-year Louisiana history. This final chart shows how important it is to look at premium over time, not just picking a couple of years. It breaks out the most recent 10-year spread for which we have data on auto insurer profit. As you can see, commercial auto insurers took deep losses each year, and private passenger auto insurers also consistently lost money. You might be wondering how insurers are staying in a state if they're losing so much money. The answer is they simply aren't. Just yesterday afternoon, I reached out to several leaders in the insurance agent field about commercial auto insurance. I asked if they could send me a list of any insurers they know of that have left the state in the past decade. In just a few hours, I heard back, and the numbers are devastating. The few people I reached out to came up with a list of nearly 40 commercial auto insurers that left the state, stopped writing new business, or limited their writing. I'm told those insurers that are left here may offer quotes, but many times those premiums are unaffordable. For-profit companies don't stay away from markets where they can make a profit. Insurers certainly would not stay out of Louisiana if they could make the billions of dollars that some people are suggesting that they do here. The data is clear. There is no doubt our citizens and businesses are suffering from this insurance crisis. We consistently rank as the most unaffordable state for auto insurance in the country. And Louisiana drivers and businesses pay close to twice as much as drivers in our neighboring states. But insurer profits are not driving our high auto rates because insurer profits don't exist in Louisiana. Now let's pivot, and I'd like to talk about what we need to do this session to fix the auto insurance crisis. When I was elected to do this job a little over a year ago, I vowed to take big moves, to focus on bold changes to make insurance more affordable. I know that we need to do it to get it done. Since I was sworn in last year, January 8th, I've traveled the state extensively. I've held over 20 town hall meetings in 16 or 17 parishes. I've engaged in over 100 speaking events with various chamber clubs, with church groups, with Rotary clubs. My schedule, I can assure you, has been very full. Everybody in the state wants to talk about insurance, and rarely do I turn events down. I also participated in, I think it was 14 legislative hearings that were held specifically to identify and address the cost drivers in Louisiana auto insurance market. And I appreciate the participation of many House and Senate members that were there with me. I've met with insurance executives, policyholders, and policyholder advocates. Most importantly, I've met with countless families and business owners in Louisiana. People just like Jake and Jared and others who joined us here today. Thank y'all for being here again. They all say the same thing, and you've heard the stories. We don't have a justice system in Louisiana. We have a legal system in Louisiana. They say they cannot afford their insurance anymore. Many are leaving, and I hear it every town hall I go. Some actually come to the meetings like in Shreveport week before last, and in Covington earlier. Have moved out. They have relocated their businesses. One gentleman to Wascom, and in Covington there was a gentleman who bought land in Mississippi. He was getting ready to move. The folks, especially the most vulnerable, are those close to our borders with Texas and Arkansas and Mississippi. They move over just across that magic line, and their insurance drops. Neighboring states like Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Florida have taken bold steps to lower rates, and it's working there. I've spoken with my counterparts in those states and in others like Georgia and South Carolina, where they're actively tackling legal reform. Georgia just passed monumental tort reform, legal reform in their state. South Carolina is still engaged in that battle. I applaud their efforts. They saw the path, they took it. There is no good reason why Louisiana shouldn't be doing the same. I would like to send a message to insurance companies that Louisiana is open for business, but I can't do that unless we pass and sign meaningful reform this session. The bottom line is that we need more insurance companies writing policies, creating competition, which lowers premiums. The package of bills I'm supporting will create transparency, certainty, and predictability in our market, which brings carriers to our states and provides affordable options to Louisiana drivers. Some of the bills in the governor's package encourage more red tape and overregulation. The only people who benefit from that are lawyers. It's certainly not the people. Those changes will not bring a single carrier to the state or lower anyone's insurance premiums. Instead, today, I'm unveiling a robust package of reform designed to bring relief to Louisiana residents by genuinely addressing the insurance cost. The reason Louisiana families and businesses pay so much for auto insurance is not a mystery. Study after study shows that our high rate of medical and legal utilization are the primary drivers in our state. These aren't feel-good bills or Band-Aid bills. With this reform package, we are going to fix the cost drivers in our legal system, like medical billing transparency, comparative fault, and general damages. These are measures that we know will move the needle and start lowering costs for families and businesses. We've passed out a list here today of those bills that I'm supporting this session, and we'll make it widely available online today for anyone out there who would like a copy. Look, these issues are complicated. Will trial lawyers, who sue for massive, excessive payouts, attack our solutions, and call them harmful to consumers? Probably so. But hard-working Louisianans know the real consumer harm is the bill that they get in the mail when it's time to renew their policy and that they can't afford it. In the past, Louisiana has done everything it can to drive insurance companies out of the state. From energy to insurance, I'm sick of how our state has historically sided with a few trial attorneys over the many citizens and job creators in Louisiana. Now is the time. I look forward to working with legislators and with our governor this session as we work to pass reform that actually lowers lost costs, increases competition, and sets the stage to lower auto insurance costs for Louisiana drivers. I want to thank y'all for being here today. I want to thank everybody here for coming out. I know when you're here doing this, you're not out trying to make money for your companies. It's a sacrifice, and I sincerely thank you for that. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioner. Thank you for having us today. Many of us were at the Capitol yesterday at a press conference on the same topic with the governor. I'm curious why you weren't there at the Capitol with the governor yesterday.
I'm curious too. You know, I have not had a conversation with the governor about insurance reform since May 7th of 2024, when we all met together in the press conference room to do the bill signing for property reform.
Commissioner, regarding the proprietary rate formulas, you said you currently have access to those. Is that something you could share, either, if not with the public, with lawmakers?
Look, the information, when insurance companies submit their rate making, their metrics, their formulas, their strategy, they have the option to file those as confidential so that their competition doesn't get to see that. Insurance is not unique in that. But we have access to see everything that we need to, that we want to make sure that they are following the laws and the regulations in Louisiana. I think it was suggested yesterday that the public doesn't have the opportunity to see that. And I'm not sure which states allow that. I don't know of any. There may be one or two out there, but you know what we're doing is not, we follow what the most, if not all of the states in the U.S. do, which is allow companies to mark things that they deem confidential and proprietary. We have the option, and we do exercise it at times when we say, no, this doesn't meet that standard. So it's not just, they don't have just the opportunity to say it's confidential and it's not questioned. We look at it, we review it, and if it meets the criteria, then it's marked confidential. If it doesn't meet that criteria, it's not.
Commissioner, two things. So yesterday, the governor talked about supporting legislation. He would sign legislation to rein in attorney advertising. One, do you support that idea? Secondly, how would you characterize your relationship with Governor Jeff Landry at this point?
Look, as far as the attorney advertising, I don't know how you, what that looks like, how you rein that in. I think that's been debated at the Supreme Court level. I actually saw this morning in Florida, there was a regulation that limited attorney advertising and what could be said, and that was just overturned in the Florida court system. So I'm willing to have that conversation, be part of that conversation to find out. I don't think you can tell people they can't advertise. If there's some truth in advertising, I think that might be the option. But I certainly look forward to being part of that conversation.
How would you characterize your relationship with Governor Jeff Landry?
Well, look, like I said earlier, the last time I've had the occasion to speak to him about insurance was last May. I have had conversations with him as recently as during at the beginning of the year after the terrorist attack in New Orleans on January 1st, and then later with the Super Bowl event. So I have a relationship. When it comes to insurance, I wish it was better. I think it's important that the governor of Louisiana is the leader of the state, and the commissioner of insurance is the point person on insurance for the state, work together. If we're working together, then the citizens of Louisiana benefit.
Commissioner, sorry to beat a dead horse, but where do you leave the public in all these conversations? I mean, if there's a disconnect between you and the governor in these two policy priorities, what are we left to think? What's the best way forward?
Look, like I said, I am willing to meet I know there's been other meetings that have taken place that I've not been part of. It's not because I've said no, it's because I wasn't invited to be part of those. So I'm looking forward, again, to working with the governor, with the legislators, with all the stakeholders, as I have been since day one, to bring meaningful reform to Louisiana so that we can set those conditions for lower premiums.
Commissioner, how do we ensure that we protect the rights of people to recover their losses when justified, and also protect insurers and commercial trucking companies, for instance?
Yeah, I think that's part of what we do through the legislative process. You know, we introduce bills, we work with stakeholders. Like I said, we want to make sure that people first can afford the insurance, the very product that they need to protect themselves. And at the same time, we work with the legislators, we work with the stakeholders to make sure that the consumers have that protection. I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I don't think that suggesting that if it's good for the insurance company, it's bad for the consumer, or if it's good for the consumer, it's bad for the insurance company. There's balance. You know, the governor said he wants to take a balanced approach. I wholeheartedly support that tactic. It works in other states. It will work in Louisiana as well.
Commissioner, you talked earlier about your ability to deny rate increases if you believe that's not prudent at that time. I'm also seeing something that your plan gives you the ability to reduce rates. If that's the case, can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, look, again, and we did a presentation at the last Senate Insurance Committee hearing about the process, what goes into rate making, what is adequate, what's inadequate, and what's excessive. That's the role of the department. That's one that we take seriously. It's one we're charged with, and we do it consistently. It's not about setting up a condition where I'm not in favor of state government, state-based pricing. I think free market should work. This is America. We're still, as you can see with our truck behind us right here, free market, capitalism is the rule of the day, and I think that we need to honor that. Like I said, it works in other states. We want to make sure and give that opportunity to work here in Louisiana as well. Yes, then I'll go.
I think I counted 20 reform measures on this handout. What's your priority? Which bills do you really want to pass?
Yeah, look, I mean, there are several. Like I said, I never think that there's one silver bullet. This is insurance is complex, and so it's going to take a lot of moving parts. I think that we need to. I think one that I've heard the governor say he supports was the housing presumption. That was one that we pushed last year. I'm encouraged that he's going to support that bill this year. We have medical transparency. We've been talking about it before. It's referred to as collateral source. There's a bill by, I think it's Senator Kleinpeter, that I like, but there are several bills out there. So we're going to have, I think, a robust discussion on transparency, medical transparency. Modified comparative fault is one that I think it's Representative Emily Chenevert has. I like that bill. That's one that, again, I'm looking forward to the debate through the process on that. And we're also looking, I mean, look, there's some extreme measures. When I hear from businesses and families in Louisiana that they are at the breaking point, that means the system is broken. Some of the legislation I think that's going to be brought up in one of those, which is putting caps on damages. That's one that a lot of people just, they either really support it or really don't like it, but it's in many other states in America. It's one that I think we need to have a conversation about here. It's drastic, but again, we're at times where we need to take drastic measures. So those are a couple. There's, as you say, you got the list, and I'm looking forward to having conversations on all of those. Yes, ma'am.
Just to be abundantly clear, what I'm gathering from what was discussed today is that, in your view, the primary driver of high auto insurance rates in Louisiana is the legal landscape here, and what's needed as a result of that is tort reform or legal reform. Is that right? Am I understanding right?
Yes. Look, I've heard it mentioned by people in the legislature that this tort reform, which again I don't like saying tort reform. Most people aren't attorneys, including myself. I'm not one. Don't know truly what tort reform is, but they know what legal reform looks like. And so the battle's been taking place for 40 years, I'm told, at the Capitol. Yes, we need, this is about, we're at the crisis stage. We're at the point now where if we don't take drastic measures and do some bold movement, then the folks behind us can't afford to do business anymore. They can't afford to live in this state anymore. And so it's focused on legal reform. We had 14 committee hearings, as I mentioned earlier, that were specific to identifying the cost drivers, why a claim is so expensive in Louisiana versus the other states. And you've seen charts, and I'm sure you're going to see a lot more from a lot of different sides. But the bottom line is that in Louisiana, when we get in an accident, we're more than twice the national average to file a bodily injury claim and more than twice to litigate. Those are the biggest cost drivers in the state, and that's what the majority of the legislation is going to focus on.
So what is the role of insurance companies then in this equation? What responsibility do they have to lower rates?
Yeah, look, I, as the Commissioner of Insurance, my job is also to hold insurance accountable and make sure that when you have a claim, if it's just, that they go out and they pay it quickly and accurately. And we have the authority to do that, and since I've been commissioner, I've worked with insurance companies to try and make that process even better. They certainly have a role in the conversations. They have been part at the table. I expect that they will continue to be at the table as we go through the process, debating these bills to help make insurance affordable again in Louisiana.
So I heard you mention capping the damages that a litigant can receive. It might be kind of a hard pill to swallow. Why not cap the fees that attorneys can receive?
Capping the fees that attorneys receive is, I believe there's a bill on that as well. Look, I think that there needs to be some shared pain by all of those involved in the process. And capping attorney fees is certainly one. Making a bill that we have, I'm going to propose that we lower the premium tax on auto insurance. So the state would actually have to share in some of the pain on that. Insurance companies as well. Like I said, they need to get to the table faster, get that claim settled, get it paid. If they don't, they will be held accountable as well.
When did the insurance cost, quote unquote, become a crisis, as you said?
Ask the folks behind me. Ask the viewers here today, when did it get a crisis? When you get that bill and you can no longer afford it. When you get that bill and you have to not pay some other expense that you have in your business or in your life because of the premiums on the insurance, whether it's home or auto, that's when it became a crisis. Look, if there's no more questions, I want to thank you all for being out here. This is the issue for the state of Louisiana. Stay focused, pay attention to it. It's going to be from what I'm told to believe, I think they're going to start running bills as early as next week. So don't blink. This is going to come fast, but it's important that we all pay attention, participate, and please show up at these hearings. Please let myself, your legislators, the governor, and every elected official know how important meaningful insurance reform is to the state of Louisiana and to you. Thank y'all for coming out here.